Playing on a Budget is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the best Magic the Gathering singles and sealed retailer on the internet, GatheringMagic.com, your #1 source for Magic the Gathering news and content, and RogueDeckBuilder.com, my personal channel filled with innovative and entertaining Magic the Gathering rogue brews. Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com with this week's episode of Playing on a Budget. We finally have all of the cards that we need to start brewing around the cards from Kaladesh, and I thought I'd go back to an oldie but a goodie with the Cryptolith Rite deck that used Westvale, Abbey, and Cryptolith Rite that was really popular at the start of Shadows of Innistrad. I think one of the problems with when a new set comes out is people are hyper-focused on all of the new toys they get from the latest set that they forget that old viable strategies are still in the format. Now, we did lose Collective Company, which was one of the cards that was very powerful in this strategy, as well as its sister card of Evolutionary Leap. But I think that most of the deck is still intact. You want to generate a lot of creatures, and you want to sack them to Zulaport Cutthroats, and then by just the aggression that you get from the Zulaport Cutthroats and the other cards, or just the amount of creatures you have a pretty good strategy of just grinding out your opponent or just out-aggroing them. Now, these type of strategies traditionally did very well against the aggressive decks. I think that it was between the other Collected Company decks and especially the Cryptolith Rite decks that were the nail in the coffin to a lot of the human aggro strategies. And now we see a very similar format come out of Week 1 and Week 2, from Kaladesh being very aggressive red decks using the chopper type strategy. So we're going to try to combat that deck with a deck that gets life pretty consistently through Night Market Lookout, which has some tricks in this deck, as well as be able to come back just with like cards like Westvale Abbey and the Zulaport Cutthroat and the Marionette Master doing the final bits of damage. So that's kind of the idea of this deck. Again, this is a well-known archetype that was very successful. Now, our card draw engine, this will be the Duskwatch Recruiter. We have Scry through the Catacomb Sifter, and we have the Generate a Ton of Mana through the Cryptolith Rite. There are a few other ways to build this. I have another version of this deck that I'm working on that runs the Eldrazi Displacer and Eldritch Evolution to try to find combos in this, or just use as a toolbox, or just plain smash through your opponent through the Verdurous Gearhulk and the Reality Smasher. But since this is playing on a budget, we're just going to keep it simple with this sort of Cryptolith Rite tokens-based strategy. So I'm going to start off with my 1-drops with Night Market Lookout and Loam Dryads. Then we're going to go in the 2-drop of Zulaport Cutthroats and Duskwatch Recruiters and Deathcap Cultivators, because we do run a very low land count at 22, and we want to get up to these Cultivator of Blades and the Marionette Masters. So we have Voldaren Pariah. In fact, we have 4 more in the sideboard, which are going to be very good at kind of handling our opponent's aggro. This can be activated as an instant. You do have to play around cards like Fiery Temper, any of the instant speed removal, or you can just get blown out. So you never want to do that, transform the Pariah, unless your opponent is tapped out. So, but it is a decent way to deal with the Chopper. We also have Chopper Hate in the form of Natural State and Complete Disregard in the sideboard. And Lost Legacies are really in here for the Ulamog Emrakul Aetherworks Marvel deck. Now, Lost Legacy cannot get Aetherworks Marvel, but it can get Ulamog. And I don't think we care too much about Emrakul in that matchup. It's Ulamog that's going to get us every time by being able to exile very key cards, like the Cryptolith Rite, for example, or even like Zulaport Cutthroats. Other than that, I think we can take at least 1, if not 2 hits from Emrakul and have a backup plan through the Voldaren Pariah to make them sacrifice it. So I'm running an Ulvenwald Hydra against control-based decks just as another way to find a Westvale Abbey. I've had other slots in here. These Soul to Harvest. I actually taped an entire 4 series with this deck, and it just wasn't really flowing the way I was running. I think a lot more greedy without a 21 land base and not the Deathcap Cultivator. So I'm expecting a better showing just by hopefully this time finding the mana we need to get up to the cards that we need, because every one of our losses was mana issues, every single one of them. So hopefully with this time around we'll do a lot better showing. So this is a budget deck. This is playing on a budget, so we do show the price list brought to you by our sponsors, CoolStuffInc.com. This one's only going to cost around $80 is what the budget with the most expensive card being the Blooming Marsh. Now, between expeditions from Battle for Zendikar and chase cards out of Shadow's Innistrad block, and now masterpieces out of the Kaladesh, card prices have gone down very, very quickly. So the most expensive is just going to be the Blooming Marsh, and you're going to get cheap cards like Cryptolith Rite at $1.25. This card is insanely powerful. Decimator of the Provinces is only $3, for example, and even Duskwatches have fallen down in price, Hissing Quagmires, on and on and on. So not a lot of expensive cards except for the Blooming Marsh. We can even remember, not in the near distant past, where Westvale Abbey was an expensive $5 to $10 card and has gone all the way down to $3. So this is a great time to pick up this kind of archetype. It doesn't rotate for quite a while because the main part of this Zulaport Cutthroat will hurt to lose when Battle for Zendikar rotates, but the main cards that actually are key to this strategy, which are going to be the Cryptolith Rite and the Westvale Abbey, are going to stick around. And now we have some new toys with the servo tokens of the Fabricate to generate enough tokens to get the Westvale Abbey. So let's just go back to the deck tech. We have a lot of ways to easily get off the Westvale Abbey very quickly. Again, that's the focal point, and the Pariah will be our alternate sack outlet if we need to bring it in versus creature-based decks. Again, the sideboard is pretty self-explanatory. We're just trying to hate out two different archetypes. Just the kind of what I call one-trick pony decks with anything that tries to get a specific card, in this case Ulamog, and then Lost Legacy will also work very well against the Prized Amalgam decks, as once we get the Prized Amalgams out, that's the renewable resource that is not going to be able to continue to be cheated in play and just continue to outvalue us. So Lost Legacy is very important. I think it's just better than Transgress in this aspect. I wish it could get Aetherworks Marvel. There's not a lot of ways because the deck usually just scries for it. They go through a ton of their deck just to find it, and then they'll have enough energy to then cast it and get the Emrakul Ulamog out. But we have a lot of ways to just either race that or go over the top of it. Where I'm thinking this deck is going to shine is clogging the boards against aggro decks. So that's kind of the gist of that. We'll play it in some either 2-mans or we'll play it in a league, see how well it does. This has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Playing on a Budget. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Gathering Magic and check out our Playing on a Budget playlist, which contains every episode. Thanks again and hope to see you soon.